Hello again, this is Samantha Roundy. I am from the B483 class, where this week the purpose of the meeting is to be able to go over the second case study, which is called Rent the Runway. I'm hoping that my group members will be here with me again this time, hopefully, since they weren't able to make it to the last meeting. I have sent out a request as well as tried to email them. So hopefully they'll be able to come over and meet with me today. And that way you are not stuck listening to me basically ranting about this case. So I'm just gonna go ahead and begin, and hopefully my group members will be able to show up, and then I'll have them contribute. So the first question was, actually, before I get into that, let me go ahead and explain a little bit about what the case is. So give me just 1 second. I actually have a note over here that kind of says it a little bit better. Okay. 1 second, guys, sorry. Okay, so basically the Rent the Runway case focuses on whether or not two women by the name of Jennifer, one goes by the name of Jen Hyman and the other one, Jenny, her last name is Fleece or Fles. I hope I didn't butcher that. I probably did. Sorry. Either way, these co-founders are in charge of the Manhattan-based Rent the Runway on business, and right now they're trying to figure out which of the two options they should pursue for their growing online business. Now, Rent the Runway had just completed its second month of business, and they had leaped past their initial assumptions regarding the number of women that would become members for the online designer dress renting business. Their business launched in November of 2009, and 2 months later, in January 2010, they had already attracted more than 150,000 members, and 60% of those had already been renting dresses. So let's go ahead and give a little bit more of a backstory on that, just so you understand a bit more. What makes the Rent the Runway business such a great hit is that it focuses on allowing younger to middle-aged women to rent designer dresses. Now, the cost of renting these dresses are only 10 to 15% of the dress's retail purchase price. So it's a huge opportunity for women to be able to try on designer dresses without breaking their bank. Furthermore, the business also offers more than just great values and conveniences in the dress rental market. It's actually fulfilling women's dreams by empowering them with the feelings of confidence and beauty, because that's what everyone wants, namely women. We like to be called beautiful. So it was this vision that encouraged the co-founders to serve a wider range of age groups and offering dresses that were suited to more social occasions by increasing the size of their inventory than just regular designer dresses. So with that, the success of the launch, it still boosted their resolve to take their business further, and they had encountered a couple of issues which led them to their current dilemma. The issues that the founders faced were they wanted to pursue improvement opportunities to their operations management system, because before they began launching their business, there were so many problems with the coding. It made it very difficult sometimes trying to rent the dresses, and there was just a lot of issues that needed to be resolved for, essentially they were the IT part of the business, just the way the website was set up and how the online coding was created. It just wasn't very good or efficient. So that was one of the main things the founders wanted to focus on. The other was to be able to try and expand the number of dresses that they were able to rent for their customers by broadening up the number of dresses that were available from designers, which would also mean increasing their inventory to, I believe, 5,000 dresses. I believe the current inventory is about 1,000 dresses, so I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that they wanted to increase the inventory of the future dresses to 5,000. So with that, they're kind of stuck figuring out which path they should pursue at the moment. They're trying to figure out if they had enough valuation in this round to prove that their business model is actually a really good business model and it's worth pursuing. And so it's just kind of a hard time trying to figure out whether they should stick to their original plan, which would actually give them a positive cash flow sooner, or if they should just go and stake their equity on kind of expanding and they probably don't have too much. They've only been operating for just 2 months. So that's the background of Rent the Runway. That's basically what the case is about. And so I'm going to move on to the questions that we're supposed to cover for the meeting. And the first question is, what grade would you give the founders of Rent the Runway for their work in starting RTR, or Rent the Runway? I would personally give them an A for their efforts because the co-founders constantly try to implement an attitude of continuously learning, not only about their market industry, but about their own business model and the needs of the customers. And I think a lot of it was they had no idea basically about fashion. They had just graduated from Harvard Business. And so it was kind of like having fresh pairs of eyes in the market. They did not constantly deal with the biases that are normally within the market. So it actually allowed them to try and expand their own knowledge of being able to go and do some research, being able to figure out what customers' needs were, and by also talking to the designers, because many of the designers were worried that their brands would become lost in the sea of other top designers. And that's one of the most important things to designers, having their brand recognized for what it is instead of being mistaken for another brand. So I would give those girls an A. And then the next question is, what specifically do you see as most effective? So I would say that the founder's ability to understand their strengths and weaknesses to be effective, it enabled them to immediately hammer out the finer details of the business model without arguing over who was right or wrong. Many times it's difficult for people to admit that they're not good at a certain skill. So being able to understand the strengths and weaknesses of not only yourself, but others is a great step in being able to create an effective team. Also, the founders, their persistence in meeting with all kinds of designers and business people within the industry was excellent because it enabled them to see how their products were viewed by others and what sort of common issues and misconceptions were already going on. Not only for their fellow competitor businesses, but for just the industry itself. And that kind of gave them a better view of what they were kind of walking into, I guess you could say. So I would say their persistence in being able to meet with all kinds of people before they were able to start their business was excellent. Not all of the people they met with wanted to join up with them. They were just kind of curious about their business, and I think it was a great experience for the girls, mainly because they were able to understand the different viewpoints of others or just the market itself. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. My bad. So yeah, so in short, the 2 points that the 2 points that I had mentioned, it improved their ability to create a stronger business model while it was able to expand on its initial ideas. I'm hopefully not going to have a brain fart that much, so let's hope not. Okay, so the next question is, where did the founders stumble? Okay, so I would say that the girls stumbled when they were trying to outsource the creation of the website. What happened is when they were trying to create the website before they were able to get the business up and running, they had come across a fellow student that was in the MBA program with them who had recommended someone from Canada, I believe. And when the girls went to go and have the Canadian people go and create the website for them, they didn't have a lot of contact with them, and they had just gone off of that one peer's recommendation. They didn't go and invest in it. They did not investigate in it. And as a result, there were so many issues with the website. That's why when the girls did eventually launch in November, there were so many problems with the website itself. So I would say they learned a lot by not having to take the opportunity to actually kind of do some research on the recommendations people give you and finding out their references. That would be something that I would have done differently, just because I'm weird and I'm a worrywart. And then the other thing that I think they may have stumbled on just a little bit was pursuing paid advertisement strategies. In the beginning, it may have been quite effective in kind of getting out the word, but due to there was a published article, and I believe it was something along the lines of Netflix, Rent the Runway Netflix or something like that, Sorry, I don't quite remember the right term for it or the name. But that article that was published actually did a lot of promotional, it was, oh goodness, I'm sorry, brain fart again. It was actually really effective in being able to promote the business's opening launch a little bit more effectively than the paid advertisement strategy had been. So with that regard, I don't really think the girls needed to have the paid advertisement, since the published article was able to kind of do that for them. And also they did it for free with that article, where for the paid advertisement, of course, they had to pay. So that resulted in a loss of money. Granted, though, I will admit that the paid advertisement strategy that they had in place, it did help bring them customers. So it wasn't a complete loss in regards to the fact that they didn't have anyone showing up. But I think it was a little bit unnecessary for them, since more customers were coming in from word of mouth advertisement strategies, as well as from the community page that was already on the website, where the women who were members could kind of share and relate their experiences with other ladies in the online market for that. So the paid advertisement just kind of didn't really seem to be as effective for me, and I wouldn't have recommended that. And I just found out that a lot of the questions, or a lot of the things I just said, could have been applied for the second question, which is, what should they have done differently? Well, I'm not going to recap over that. I'm going to try and save you guys a headache of listening to me ramble. So I'm going to move on to the next question. So our next question says, does the order in which they took specific actions matter? I would say that they do matter, only because if they had immediately jumped into the market without doing the research on the competition, customers, or designers, then their business would not have been as successful as it was. Starting a business is much more difficult than it looks, and also the founders of Rent the Runway did a great job of pivoting when they found out that their initial assumptions were lacking or they were incorrect. So I feel that a lot of the steps that they had taken in being able to start Rent the Runway were excellent. There may have been a few minor things that they could have done differently. There's no set plan on having or starting up the perfect business. That just does not exist. Let me tell you that now. So with what the path that the girls took in being able to start their business, excuse me, I think they did a great job, because every step that they took, it allowed them to learn something new. And when they were able to learn something that didn't quite mesh with their initial assumptions, my apologies, they were able to go and change their business model without having to reinvest a bunch more money, and it actually saved them in the long run. I have heard of many businesses that when they're starting up, they're not doing too much research. They have a basic understanding of the current industry and what's to be expected, as well as its outlook. And then when they have their business up and running, they're finding out that not many people want to buy their product or their services, and it's going to take a lot more money that they already spent in trying to basically redo the whole company to provide a product or service that people actually want. So in short, being able to study and make changes when you first discover them is a lot more effective than trying to do that after you've already spent a lot of money in creating your business the way it needs to be, or the way you thought it needed to be. So with that, let me move on to the next question. Have the founders of Rent the Runway validated their business model? Okay. I would say that the founders validated their business model by being able to not only have a successful and promising launch, but they also had continued increases in customer and business opportunities. Currently, even though they're 2 months into their business, they are already providing a far superior service and as well as products than what their competitors are currently providing. I believe there's only 2 competitors that were mentioned in this case study, and if there's more, forgive me. But the 2 competitors that were currently competing against Rent the Runway, they either would be able to allow women to rent products that were kind of after the season had ended, or they didn't allow women to have kind of like a filter where women could search for dresses that were suited for more special occasions. So it kind of made it a little bit more difficult for those competitors to be able to give the customers, namely the women, exactly what they were looking for in a much shorter amount of time. So I would say yes, they validated their business model. And then the next question is, what is a business model? Well, a business model is basically a design of how your business will operate by determining when and how much revenue will be earned, the expenses will be incurred as well as paid for, and which customers will be targeted and how they will be treated, as well as the plans for the overall financing of the business. That's just the very broad explanation. There's so much more essentially to that if you wanted to get more technical. However, within the business model, there are other aspects that could be researched, like I just mentioned, but the business model just in itself will emphasize and kind of showcase the basic layout and purpose of your business. It allows you to kind of explain what makes your business so unique and why it's going to be the greatest hit of all time. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next question. Hopefully my classmates will be here soon. I feel so bad and awkward that I am ranting to you all. I'm so sorry. Classmates, if you're here and you can hear me, please show up. So next question, what are the key elements of Rent the Runway's business model? I would say that the key elements of Rent the Runway's business model is that it's unlike the competition in regards to, of course, offering designer clothing fresh off of the runway, so to speak. Several competitors such as, oh, yay, here's mine now. Okay, so Wear Today, Gone Tomorrow, as well as Bag, Borrow, and Steal. Those are the names of the two competitors within this case. They focused on renting clothing and accessories like Rent the Runway, but of course the key difference between them was that the competition did not cater to the women's needs of being able to rent dresses for specific occasions by allowing for reservations. Now, Rent the Runway's unique reservation feature allowed women to place orders for dresses for up to 6 months in advance. And for anyone that knows women that are considered fashionistas, it is very important to have the right dress for the right time. And if you cannot find it, it is almost like the end of the world, because it's very difficult trying to find a flattering dress that is suited for a specific need. And a lot of times, many of the dresses that some women will wear, they may only be worn once or twice, because no woman wants to technically be seen in the same outfit more than once. So yeah, that's a little insight from a woman. Furthermore, the Rent the Runway provided a special addition to its business model that allowed women, upon actually reserving a dress, to have a second dress of the same style shipped along with the reserved dress free of charge. Now, this feature was unlike any of the options or features that competitors had, because this feature was just to improve the odds of having the dress fit. Because some dresses, as every woman will know, they don't always fit correctly, so it's kind of hard sometimes when you may be like a size 7 and you try size 7 dress and just the style of the dress does not match your body, and so you have to keep trying on different sizes. So that was really cool, and I really actually love that about this case. So with that, I'm going to move on. And our next question is, what does it mean to validate a business model? Well, validating a business model, in my opinion, is simply implementing a process that essentially runs your business by demonstrating that your predetermined assumptions and procedures are working correctly in the intended manner, by not only generating profits, but also improving your businesses or generating your business's reputation, stability, as well as being able to generate growth opportunities. So I think a lot of it, that was just all a lot of fancy words. Let me go and like sum this down basically. Validating your business means you're proving to others that what you thought was right is correct. That's as simple as that. Whether or not that's actually 100% true, I don't know. I was hoping my group members would be here to kind of share their insights with me, and that way I could kind of figure out if I was on the right track with this case. But since hopefully they might be here soon, I'm just gonna keep going, and then if they show up, we can have them come over and let me know whether I was right or not in my assumptions, and I can kind of learn from them a little bit. So yeah, all right. So which elements are validated? Off top of my head, I can only think of 2, which is, I'm pretty sure, not the amount that were in the case. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more evidence to back up the validation of the business. But the top one that I can think of right now is understanding that the United Postal Service was a really good option for having a the option of being able to ship as well as return the dresses that were being rented. Actually, I can go and pull that up real quick. I'm looking for something that is actually going to kind of fix or explain what I'm saying. So, okay, here it is. So I'm going to actually kind of jump back and forth between two questions. The next question that I'm about to go into for the UPS explanation is, what evidence do you have to support your position? So, and I just found it. This element, it says over here on page number 6 of the case, it states that Hyman says, we received 85% of the dresses back within 24 hours and the rest within 2 days. And 51 of the 53 dresses were returned in perfect condition. The other 2 had minor stains that were easily removed by the dry cleaner. Okay, so with that, granted, a lot of the times returning options are basically a result of whether or not the customers are actually going to return. But as anyone knows, when you're waiting for something to come in, it seems like it's taking longer than it should. But since 85% of the dresses were returned within 24 hours of being rented, to me, that is phenomenal. That is an excellent way to be able to make sure your inventory doesn't get taken out. Because there's so many dresses that are being rented online, you need to make sure your dresses are coming back in a timely manner. Excuse me. So that is the first element that I feel is validated. And then, okay, so the second one that I can think of, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it before, was just getting a large number of women to rent dresses from online sources instead of a store where the dresses could actually be tried on in person. And oh, okay, it's also right down here. Yay for highlighting. Sorry, I make highlights and notes in my case studies. So the evidence I have to support that position is the fact that there was a trial for the business in September of 2009, and the trial that I'm going to be explaining is actually the third trial that was conducted by the company. The first 2 trials were basically trying to see if women would rent dresses and whether or not the UPS option was a strong candidate for being able to have the dresses returned with the shipping, as well as being able to send out the goods in the beginning. So that actually proved to be very successful. Now, the third trial just focused on whether or not women would be able to be inclined to rent dresses online without trying them on. And so here's kind of what it says a little bit about that. So in September of 2009, a random sample of 1,000 women who had been asked to be contacted by Rent the Runway were involved in a trial. Now, this trial focused on emailing these women PDF pictures of the dresses that they were offering at that time for the trial. And these dresses could be rented over the phone instead of just through the online cart, or online shopping cart, I guess you would call it, because that feature was still being worked on for the website during the trial. So the results of this trial were not as successful as the initial in-person trials had been, but it still resulted in 5% of the women out of the 1,000 renting these dresses. Now, granted, this number, of course, was a lot lower than the earlier trials, mainly because women were unable to try on the dresses, but having 5% actually proved to be above the assumed targeted rate. This number was actually able to prove that this service would actually be profitable. So that was actually really awesome to go and figure that out. And then the next question that we have is, how many times does a dress need to be rented in order to break even? Now, let me see if I can actually go and pull up something and I can share it with you. Give me one moment. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through a tunnel, and there it goes. Okay, so we're just going to go and do this. Now, like I said before, I was really hoping my group members would have been here at the start of the meeting, and hopefully they will still show up. But I'm assuming that I have everything over here that is correct. Again, I'm not 100% sure, so if I'm wrong, please forgive me. I was hoping my classmates would kind of prove to me whether or not I was on the right ballpark. So right here we have our break-even number, and this is essentially $8, or if you want to get super technical, $7.66. But since you cannot rent 7.66% of a dress, I just moved that to 8. So a dress has to be rented 8 times in order for the company to break even. And of course, this is just based off how many rentals to cover the cost of an average dress. For this, the number of dresses that were rented per rental were 2. And this is based off of the fact that the women would rent one dress and then a second dress in a second size in the same fashion or style would be sent along with them. So the number of dresses per rental, or I'm sorry, the cost per dress was $226. That was how much the actual dresses were purchased for by Rent the Runway. And then the effective cost of the dress is just $452. So that's actually just twice the cost of the dress. That's how much the company is spending per dress. Now, the revenue per rental for one dress is $90. That would be the difference for the, I believe it was 10 to 15% of what the actual dresses would cost. So our variable cost per the rental is $31. The variable cost essentially just ensured that it covers the shipping fees for being able to send out as well as to receive the dresses, and to kind of cover the dry cleaning expenses, as well as to have extra money on the side in case some of the dresses need to be repaired. If there was like a broken zipper, or if there was a couple of a couple of threads that were coming loose. It was just to kind of cover that and make sure that the dresses were still perfectly ready to be worn again. So our contribution margin is essentially our revenue minus the cost that's incurred, and that just kind of shows how much they would be able to make from that. Now the break-even point is how many dresses would they have to rent, or I'm sorry, how many times would they have to rent one dress in order to break even? Break even is where, of course, you don't make any money, but you don't lose any money. So in short, if you spend $1,000 to break even, you would have to be able to recoup $1,000 exactly. So of course, the answer that I got was essentially dividing the effective cost per the dress by the contribution margin, and that gave us that answer. So let me go and see. I'm not quite sure if this actually needs to be gone over just yet, so let me find out. Okay, let me see. Okay, sorry, I had to shrink that one page. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to the next question, sorry. How many times has an average dress been rented during the first 2 months of operation? Okay, so for this one, my answer was the average time a dress has been rented during the first 2 months of operation is 77 times. And let me see, I think that one part where I had it, yep. Okay, so let me go and share my screen again. That way it makes it so much easier to explain. And give me one moment, please. So we're going to share. We're looking down the dark tunnel again, and there we go. Okay, so the way I came up with 77 is I had some numbers down here. So if we have 150,000 members, determine the total number of dresses that were actually available to be rented. In the case study, we learned that there were, I believe, 800 dresses in 160 styles. And so I just basically multiplied that to get the total number of dresses that were available. Now, because the business was operating during some of the busiest months of the year for many women, namely for Christmas, Thanksgiving, as well as New Year's, the inventory actually had a severe drop where there were 5,000 dresses being reserved, and there was like essentially no inventory left over at that point. 75% of the dresses were being rented at that point. So that just kind of shows the reserved inventory, which I have that, and that proves that the number of available dresses for essentially New Year's, based on the information that I got from the case, would actually be 32, which I just took the percentage that I had from the 75% minus the total dress percent, and that gave me 32,000 dresses. So here's how I figure out the average number of times a dress has been rented. And for this, I have 76,800 times. And the way I got this was up to now, the business has been operating for 2 months. It has had a lot of success. And the 150,000 members, their data has proven that 60% of those women have already rented dresses. Now 12%, I believe it's 12.5% to be exact, have rented the dresses more than once. But since that's a whole nother thing I don't want to get into, I'm just going to do the very bare basic. That way I'm not off too much, hopefully, on my calculations. So essentially, I just took the total number of dresses and multiplied that by 60%. And that goes to show us that 76,800 dresses were rented once, or each dress has been rented by that amount. So let me stop sharing my screen again, and now I can see you all because I shrunk my one page. And so that's how I came about of figuring how many times an average dress has been rented. Now, I'm going to move on to the next question, which is, what do these results imply about the viability of the business? I would say that the business has a strong foundation of theories that just needs to be implemented into the business. What I mean by that is they have a basic layout that's correct. They know what it is they're wanting to do. They have the overall goal in mind, as well as having their team being able to see that same goal and vision. However, they do need to address their operational efficiencies in order to be able to accomplish more with what they currently have. I feel that they would actually be doing a lot better if all of their operational inefficiencies were fixed. But that, of course, can be fixed, changed later on. And then the final question that I have right here is, should Rent the Runway seek to scale quickly now or address operational efficiencies? If I were in the co-founder shoes, my personal opinion would honestly just be to focus now on the operational improvements in 2010 before raising more capital in early 2011, due to the fact that their website has a lot of problems that still need to be resolved. At the launch of the business in November 9, 2009, there were thousands of coding problems. And when they were trying to rush in order to get the business up and running for the launch, the people that were trying to actually go and fix the website after the botched previous website builders kind of messed it up, and that was the result of lack of evidence or research into the references of that one student that was the peer. So with that in mind, I'm going to kind of jump ahead now. After there were so many coding issues, the people that were trying to fix the website to be able to launch it on time, they were going through all the codes, and only the codes that had 20% of the coding actually correct were left alone. So that just goes to show there's a lot wrong with their coding system right now. And that does need to be fixed if it's to not have any long-term problems in the future. So with that, I would say that if Rent the Runway wants to maximize its business capabilities, it would be better to work on optimizing their operational system now before trying to expand their inventory. Because at their current financial point in time, I guess you would say, or their current financial records, right now they're actually doing above what they thought would be they would have earned. They're doing better than their initial assumptions of the launch, and they have enough money to be able to work on the operational problems, and they'll still be able to have enough money to go and then maybe raise a little bit more in the future. However, if they were to go with the second option of being able to like increase the size of their business and expand really quick, they would need a lot more money to be able to do that, and they would need to fix their inventories. And the only problem with that I see at this current time with the state of the business is you're always going to have an opportunity to expand your inventory later on if it's still successful. But that success also results on whether or not your business is fully functional and if it's operating the way it needs to function. If it's not, and it's not up to par, you're going to have a lot of problems. And that's also going to dig into your profits if you have to keep spending a lot of money every time there's an issue to keep fixing it, especially when you're in a much larger business. So in a smaller, more condensed size of a business, it's technically a little bit easier just because you don't have to spend as much money in order to fix a problem, where if they were to increase the size of their business right now, they would have to fix everything all over again. And if they have multiple distribution stores or multiple places where they host their business, it's just that many more places that they would need to go to fix their problems for the coding. So with that in mind, I would say once they fix the issues that they currently have, they'll have a much better chance of being able to expand their company, because a lot of businesses, like for investors or potential partners, they'll see how stable and efficient their company is. And if they were if they were to go and try and expand their business now with the way it is, granted, yeah, it's profitable, they're making money, they're doing very good. But the larger you get, the larger your problems that are currently in place, they get too. So that's kind of something you need to be mindful of when you're thinking of growing your business quickly. And if they try to do that right now, a lot of their potential investors or partners would see their issues, and they could also view them as a risk, and they may not want to partner or invest in that company just because there's so many issues with it. It would just kind of make them stop and think, if you have that many issues now and you're at a smaller scale, what will be the end result of when you're actually bigger? Are you going to effectively able to handle the problems, which is highly doubtful considering they still haven't quite managed to fix it now. I will say to their credit that they're only 2 months into the business. They're extremely young for the company in itself. It's not mature by any means. It has a lot of room for growth, and as well as being able to provide more features and functions for the customers themselves. So that would honestly just be something I would do. Whether or not that is the correct path, I don't think there is any one right choice. There's multiple ways to run a business. Some have proven to be more effective than others. So it just kind of goes to go to show what you feel is right and how to effectively implement your understandings and being able to get something up and running. And I believe that's all the questions we have. Unfortunately, yeah, that's all the questions we have. My partners still have not shown up yet. I don't know what to think about that. I'm so sorry because you all are stuck with me. Again, I'm so sorry. Hopefully, next week we are supposed to be grouped automatically into a group. So I should have about 3 group members. Hopefully, my experience with them will not be as difficult as this one. I'm not going to lie, this week has not been fun since my group members are not currently responding to my emails or my phone calls. So yeah, in short, that's all I have. I'm so sorry again that you were stuck just listening to me blabber, and I'm going to stop talking now so your ears will stop bleeding. Thank you for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you next time.